right, well, thank you for coming today. My name is Michelle Oxford. I am the CEO of the Bakersfield Heart Hospital, and we are excited to announce that we have put together a world-class team of physicians to treat the complex, deadly structural heart diseases here at the Bakersfield Heart Hospital. Structural heart disease refers to conditions like heart valve problems, holes in the heart, or clot prevention for heart rhythm problems such as atrial fibrillation. At Bakersfield Heart Hospital, we have a long-standing tradition of excellence, and we are constantly and consistently in the top decile of the nation for cardiac care. Now, we take that same commitment as we expand our cardiac services to include catheter-based, minimally invasive procedures to treat structural heart diseases. I have a couple firsts. We are the first hospital in Kern County to introduce mitral valve repair, and we are also the first hospital in the county to do 50 cases of Watchman procedure to minimize stroke in patients with atrial fibrillation using only one device per patient when the national average is 1.4 devices per patient. Our interdisciplinary team, which we'll be introducing, offers minimally invasive alternative for aortic valve diseases, and this procedure is referred to as TAVR. It precludes the need for an open heart approach to the procedure, which allows treatment to a much sicker patient population who otherwise wouldn't qualify for traditional surgical operation. We have assembled a team of 4 structural disease-trained fellows from the University of Miami, University of Chicago, the Mayo Clinic, and Cedars-Sinai. This team is headed by the world's preeminent physician, Dr. Saibal Kar. Dr. Kar has been, yes. Dr. Kar has been involved in developing these technologies from the beginning and is the director of our program. And he has also helped start these programs in different parts of the US, Europe, Asia, and Australia. So we're very lucky to have Dr. Kar with us. So we are pleased to have the stellar team dedicated to delivering the world-class heart care in our community, and I will turn the program over to Dr. Kar and his team to say a little bit more about what they're doing, their cutting-edge approach, and take questions from the group. Thank you.
Do you want to say something first?
Yes.
So I used to train, I work at Cedars-Sinai for 20 years. And I took care, and many of the people over here, including Sarabji is my fellow, Neeraj was my research fellow. I used to see patients coming from the counties, Bakersfield, Fresno. They'd come many, many hours driving, and we would keep them waiting for hours before we actually saw them. It was actually a bad feeling that these people had come all the way. For me, this is a great opportunity to actually come down here and actually give the care right to this place. So when Bridge asked me in February that, can I start a program here? And I said, it's going to be difficult. I want to see everything, whether you have the infrastructure. I knew they had the patients. Do you have the infrastructure? Do you have the expertise? And do you have the nursing staff and the administrative support? So it all started with Bridge and Michelle, who were very supportive, and she was ready to buy any equipment I wanted. That's very important to have the right equipment. The staff are outstanding. Actually, I was actually quite shocked. The cath lab staff were very fast to understand that the people in the office, I remember congratulating Monica for the work, okay, to get all the patients ready. And they said, you can see patients on Saturday too. I said, no, I don't want to come on Saturday. He said, no, we see patients on Saturday too. So they had patients coming on Saturday. And so we started in a very systematic way. So I said, let's start with a procedure which is less invasive and slightly less dangerous. So I started with the Watchman procedure, which is closing the atrial appendage for prevention of stroke in atrial fibrillation patients. So I expected to do like 5-6 cases a month. That's it. We ended up doing 52 cases in, 3 months? Which is probably the largest average in the whole country, to do 52 cases in 3 months. And they have, 20 patients waiting? The second thing we did is MitraClip, that is transcatheter repair of the mitral valve. By then I realized that the imaging qualities were very good. You had Neeraj, who actually understood imaging very well, so I went to the next step. And we actually did one patient, which took, 35-40 minutes? And the patient's done very well. And today they did the first transcatheter aortic valve replacement, because here we did more invasive stuff, like we needed surgeons around, anesthesia, and that was successful too. So this is the beginning of a great success story. And for me, it's an honor to be working over here. I drive long hours to come here, but I enjoy it. I have built this program in many parts of the world. I started actually building this program in Slovenia. There was a very similar situation like this, and I actually started the program there 6 years ago. I did the Watchman procedure in 9 nations. I started the Watchman program first in Australia, Israel, Korea, Japan, Argentina, Brazil. And so I realized that you can go to these different places and find physicians, find staff, and find people, and you properly train them, they actually can do the procedure themselves. With that, I can ask any questions to all of you guys. And of course, I didn't recognize Ajay. Ajay has been actually the spearhead of this program. He's a very well-trained cardiologist, and he's probably going to be one of the futures of this whole program. Right, Ajay?
We are very excited about the structural program that we have built up at Heart Hospital. Obviously, it was an amazing effort from the Michelle Oxford and her team, very well organized. And thanks to Dr. Bambi, who had a great vision to take healthcare to the next level at Central Valley. So with the leadership of Dr. Saibalkar and with the director, Ajay Patel, Neeraj, I think we'll take it to next level, serving the Central Valley, which was our dream, and it's coming true. So we need your help, encouragement, and we just need to take to Kern County to world-class level. Thank you.
So now we'll take any questions from the group or the media, and the physicians can certainly answer those for you.
Doctor, how do they repair a hole in the heart?
So hole in the heart is basically repaired same by minimally invasive approach. You go from the groin, and with the help of a device, which is an umbrella device, it has 2 discs. It goes on either side of the left upper and the right upper chamber, and you close the hole with the help of ultrasound of the heart, which is done at the same time as we use the imaging technique fluoroscopy in the cath lab. So Dr. Carr has been pioneer of this, and he has done multiple trials to bring it to existence since I've seen it for last so many years. And it's a great result, and it really helps patients to prevent strokes, which are sometimes very common in the community but are undiscovered.
The other thing is going to be used for treating children. In fact, most of the, just think of it till about 30 years ago, the only way to treat babies with holes would be open heart surgery. And now we actually have abolished the need for open heart surgery for baby children with holes. Even though this is not a pediatric hospital, but we actually take care of children up to 10 kilos of weight. You can actually fix a hole with the same price.
Thank you.
Yes?
How does the mitral clip reduce mitral regurgitation?
So basically, what it is that the mitral valve consists of 2 leaflets like this, right? And what happens is certain areas of the valve leaflet just prolapse like this or get restricted like that, right? So what we do is we suture or fix one of the abnormal part of the mitral valve to the other part of the valve, and we convert an incompetent single orifice valve into a double orifice valve. You got it? So it acts on 2 sides, but the abnormal part is clipped in the middle to the normal part of the other side. So you now convert an incompetent single orifice valve into like 2 holes working together. The procedure is done through the vein. We go up the groin. It's done under ultrasound. In fact, the only skill set that you need to do this procedure is you've got to be good in video games. So if you're good in video games, you can do this procedure. It usually takes a couple of hours. The device is, you actually can advance it in the system. You can clip the 2 leaflets. If you don't like it, you can reposition it. If it doesn't work, you can take it out. So it's completely safe, and then usually the patients go home the next morning. Yes.
What is the hospital stay for a TAVR patient?
It's now come down to about 2 days now. And the reason why the first day we follow the patient ICU because sometimes they develop complete heart block, requiring pacemakers. So we usually observe them for the first 24 hours and then they go home the next day. And for MitraClip, it's usually 1 day. Yes.
Doctor, how long does the TAVR procedure go?
The length of procedure time? Well, usually it's around 1 to 1.5 hours because we have to, in this case, we had to give anesthesia, so it took some time. Then we have to prep the lines, and then we take about another hour to do the procedure. The actual element of putting the valve in only takes 20, 30 minutes, but it's better to be slow and than to rush through the whole thing. Right? Yes.
Who's a good candidate for the TAVR procedure?
Who is a good candidate? So the initial clinical trials were actually approved for patients who are high risk for open heart surgery. But subsequently, there have been two layers of studies which actually have proven that we are equivalent or potentially superior even in low risk patients. So any patient with aortic stenosis should be a candidate. And the only patients we probably shouldn't be doing is very young patients. Because if you have very young patients, because we don't know the durability of these valves, right? So in very young patients, we still use mechanical valves. Or if the aorta is abnormal, then we use an operation. But otherwise, most patients who are above the age of 70, irrespective of their high risk, whether they're moderate risk or high risk, should be considered for this procedure. Now, there are certain anatomical exclusions, like if it's too calcified or it's too large, those are different things. But otherwise, in most cases, they can be by a TAVR. Yes.
Can you talk about the benefits of the procedures when it comes to hospital stays and recovery time?
So it's pretty obvious that the hospital stay and the recovery time is going to be much lower. And it's been proven in multiple studies that the morbidity associated with this procedure is significantly less compared to open heart surgery. So the recovery is faster. They go back to home faster. And they can actually, their quality of life improvement is actually better at 1 month. And obviously at 1 year too.
What made you come up with this procedure and these programs?
So I can't take credit for the invention of these procedures, but I take credit only in actually perfecting the MitraClip procedure and the Watchman procedure around the world. I actually showed the technique of doing the MitraClip procedure. So when I started doing this procedure, it was in 2005, and I actually learned it from an animal. I didn't even learn it on an animal model. It was on a plastic model, actually not even a patient. And so I remember when I did the 5th case and it failed, and I was very frustrated. So I told this rep, I said, listen, I got to learn this properly. I don't know how I can do it. He says, you are it. There's no one who's done 5 cases. So now, of course, many operators know how to do the procedure. Many physicians have actually worked together and made this procedure more safe, more effective. And then we should also give credit to the manufacturers, the industry, who've actually made this device. They've actually made multiple iterations, modifications to make it safer. So now it's a standard procedure.
How do you feel that the staff here has taken on what you have brought to them?
How's the staff?
Yes, how do you feel that staff has taken on this?
The staff over here are unbelievable. I mean, actually, that's what I want to tell you. I'm actually quite shocked. Starting from the first day when I met the staff in the office and I met the staff in the cath lab, as well as the higher levels, Michelle and Ridge, and these physicians, they were all ready to do it, and they were extremely committed. And when I say were extremely committed, that's why it was so successful. That's the reason why. So I never found a single hurdle to start this procedure here, other than me driving 2 hours here over the grapevine. Yes.
If somebody has a Watchman procedure, do they still have to take blood thinners?
No. The whole purpose of the Watchman procedure is to come off blood thinners, because as you know that the blood thinners are effective in reducing stroke, but they come with a price, and the price is the cost of bleeding, including in the brain. So what you do over here when you do a Watchman procedure, you reduce the risk of stroke equivalent to a blood thinner, but you reduce the significant risk of long-time bleeding. So therefore, it's got a cumulative effect. That's the whole purpose. And so there are a lot of people who cannot tolerate blood thinners. There are a lot of people who are reluctant to take blood thinners. And there are a lot of people who should not be taking blood thinners. So for these three groups of patients, this is the ideal procedure. Yeah.
So I watched the procedures, and how long does that device last for the patient? And after the patient has the Watchman procedures done, what kind of side effects or what kind of things that the patient should be watching out for?
Right. So the first question was, how long does it last? It lasts forever. In the sense that it's just a scaffold. It's an umbrella scaffold in the pouch in the heart. And so what happens is it gets covered with tissue. And then when it's covered in tissue, it's embedded in your body. So it's permanent. So in the studies, we actually haven't shown any long-term side effects like erosions of the wall. We haven't seen any of that. A few patients have developed a clot on the device in the first few months, and that's why we do imaging in the first few months. And if it does occur, you can give blood thinners for a short time and get it away. So that's the only long-term effect that I've seen. And your last question was, that's both the questions.
What is the successful rate of these procedures in California or nationwide?
So I think it's nationwide 95%. So I think we say that in 95% of people, we are able to close the appendage off and come off blood thinners over a short time.
Very impressive.
Yeah. Over here, we've done 52 cases. We've been successful in every single patient. Okay.
Is it foreseeable that this could actually replace blood thinner use eventually if it's shown to be just as effective?
Right. So, as you know, the FDA has approved this device, but there is some sort of a restriction to people who have challenges with blood thinners, right? That's what the indication is. There is new studies coming out which are going to study this device in people who are all comers, means who can't take blood thinners. We hope in the next 5-6 years we can demonstrate clear non-inferiority to all the blood thinners, and it should be an alternative to blood thinners for all patients. Yes.
One last question.
Yes.
Talking about all of these, what does it mean for the average patient out there? What does it mean for the community of Bakersfield, for this hospital, to have developed this program and nurture it?
So there are two parts. The one part is developing a program, and the other part is excelling in a program, right? You can develop a program, but it may not be very successful. But I think what is very important, and I've seen that from Bridge, he calls me in the night every day and says everything's okay. He's very careful. And the most important thing is when you are in a smaller hospital like this, see, I've worked in a very big hospital, and we've had complications. It's like saying, oh, well, God, that patient died in heaven. It's okay. But in places like here, if you have a complication, everyone knows about it. So you have to be very, very vigilant. And so it's very important that at least over the last 8-9 months, 3 months that I've seen it, they've been very cautious. Michelle's called me, oh, by the way, Saibal, something happened to this patient. I said, how did you know? She knows everything. So that's very good. So that's actually very good that it's careful. So what I've found in this situation in this last 4 months, that people, physicians, the staff are very vigilant about the outcomes. And so that's most important. It's not actually the numbers of cases. We do quite a few numbers. To me, it's the quality. So I think we've reached, as Sarabjit said, we're almost like world class. We actually are. I mean, you should take credit for that. I go around the world. I've seen a lot of things in different places. I just came back from Japan. I doing Watchman's there. They took 6 hours to do just 2 cases. So here they do like 6 cases in like a day, half a day. So it is it's getting there. So for the patients, it's a huge thing because they don't have to travel so many hours to go to to Los Angeles or San Francisco to get this treatment where they can actually get it done here. So it is important.
What are the biggest negative things associated with open heart surgery that have been solved with these new procedures?
In general?
Yeah, in general.
Well, open heart surgery is, by the way, we should start by saying that open heart surgery is a successful procedure, right? It's an amazing innovation in science. But it's a price that you pay of cutting the sternum open and the recovery rate. And the other thing that happens with open heart surgery is that, let's say you have a procedure, right? And you have an open heart surgical procedure and it's successful. And then let's say 5-6 years later it fails. a redo surgery on a patient is an additional risk. Let's say I do a mitral procedure, it doesn't work after 6 years, and the patient comes back and I tell them you're going to have open heart surgery. For that patient, it's her first operation, so the risk is low. So that's the problem with surgery, open heart surgery, that when they do something, they do well, but there still can be a recurrence, and when they have a recurrence and they have to have a second operation, it's an additional risk. And that's why both patients and physicians are trying to shy away from invasive procedures and go towards less invasive procedures.
And are any of these new procedures, are they unique to Kern County, or?
I wouldn't say these procedures have been done around the world. I think the mitral clip it's unique to this. The mitral clip, I think, is the first in Kern County. That's right. So transcatheter mitral valve repair, the case that we did like a month ago, that was the first case in Kern County. The Watchman procedure has been done in other hospitals in Bakersfield, but the numbers of cases and the quality of care is actually clearly world class. Yeah, and then transcatheter valve replacement just started. Yeah.
Another question.
Yes.
So what type of patients that qualify or meet the criteria for these type of procedures in terms of benefits versus risk?
So we've gone through all the 3 procedures, right? We basically think that the mitral clip in the United States has been approved only for patients who are high risk for mitral valve surgery. So that's one group. So they have to have a suitable anatomy, and the surgeon should consider this patient either inoperable or high risk. So that's the group of patients. It's not yet approved for all categories of patients, the mitral. For transcatheter aortic valve replacement, we've gone up till high risk to even low risk patients. So because it's really shows, so that's the study. So therefore, most patients can have it. And for left atrial appendage occlusion, for Watchman device, I think it's a pretty broad indication for those people who cannot, who should not, and who will not take anticoagulation. And somebody asked me this question in a conference, and I said, if you have a femoral vein and you have Medicare insurance, you're approved. I was just joking.
With that, I wanted to thank everyone for coming today, and most importantly, I wanted to thank our physicians, Dr. A.J. Patel, Dr. Carr, and Dr. Jeet Singh. And then I do see some of our cath lab staff in the back. They're like looking at me but they do a lot of the work, and it does take a team approach, and from the front door to patient registration, to our nurses who are in the pre-op area, to our ICU nurses, all the way through discharge. It's a fantastic, fantastic program that we've built at the Heart Hospital. So again, thank you all for coming, and have a great day.